chosen one somewhere, right now, in a room with no windows and no clocks, someone is reading a file with your name on it. Not the public record, not the surface-level information anyone could pull with a few clicks. The real file, the one assembled quietly, meticulously, at great expense. The one meant to end everything you've been building in silence. They didn't want curiosity. They wanted ammunition. They hired the best, paid without hesitation, and demanded proof that you were ordinary, flawed, hiding something shameful they could weaponize forever. They expected darkness. They expected a weakness, but what actually happened rewrote the rules. That investigator sat alone with every document, every interview, every surveillance image, and closed the file with trembling hands. What they found wasn't a scandal. It wasn't a secret. It was something far more unsettling to the people who sent them. They discovered that you cannot be touched, and suddenly, no one knew what to do with you. But before we reach the moment their understanding of power collapsed, we have to go back to when they thought this would be easy, back to when they had no idea what they were walking into. It began the way it always does when insecure minds watch someone rise. In whispers behind closed doors, in jealousy disguised as concern. Someone said, "No one ascends like that without secrets. No one stays that calm without hiding something. Let's find out who they really are." So calls were made. Strings were pulled. A professional was hired, someone known for dismantling people piece by piece, for exposing cracks others missed. This investigator had a reputation: thorough, relentless, cold. Careers had ended because of their file. Politicians fell. Empires crumbled. This was supposed to be routine, a background check, a deep dive into your past. Social media, finances, interviews, pattern. Easy work, a quoted price. Paid instantly. Your enemies leaned back, confident, waiting for the dirt to surface any day now. They thought any day, and you'd be buried. What they never imagined was that they had just set in motion the very thing that would bury them instead. The investigator took the case with certainty. Everyone has a flaw. Everyone breaks under scrutiny. That belief had built their entire career. Humans are predictable. Follow the trail. Expose the truth. They pulled up your information with casual efficiency: name, history, connections, nothing unusual. Notes were made. Standard subject, standard timeline. Results expected in weeks. Those notes would later become bitter irony. Weeks passed. Silence. No updates. No findings. The people who paid grew uneasy. When the investigator finally called back, the confidence was gone. In its place was hesitation. They asked for more time, said the case was different, said the usual methods weren't working. What no one understood yet was that everything had already been found, and that was the problem. There was nothing there. No crimes, no scandals, no hidden debts, no betrayals waiting to surface. Decades of records revealed nothing to condemn, nothing to manipulate. The emptiness itself became the anomaly, and for a mind trained to hunt darkness, that kind of purity isn't reassuring, it's terrifying. They interviewed former colleagues, old friends, people who claimed to know you from far back in time. They accessed databases they were never meant to touch. They chased digital trails that should have led to something damaging, something compromising, something exploitable, and every single path led to the same place. Nowhere a dead end, a clean slate. A person who moved through this world without collecting the kind of residue everyone else accumulates just by existing. At first, the investigator assumed error. Maybe the records had been wiped. Maybe someone powerful had intervened. Maybe there was a level of sophistication involved that demanded different tools, but the deeper they dug, the more unsettling the realization became. Nothing had been scrubbed. There was nothing to erase. This wasn't a cover-up. This was simply who you were, and in a world built on leverage, where everyone has mistakes, regrets, vulnerabilities waiting to be pulled like strings, a genuinely clean record is not reassuring. It's disturbing. Sleep became difficult. Confidence eroded. The investigator began questioning their own methods, their own assumptions, even their understanding of human nature itself. Then came the interviews from your past, the part that was supposed to be effortless. People love to talk. Resentments linger. Grudges wait patiently. All it usually takes is the right tone, the right question, and the truth spills out, but something strange happened. Everyone described you differently. Some said you were warm. Others said you were distant. A few called you the most honest person they'd ever known. Others said you were so private, they never felt they truly knew you at all. Former partners spoke of you with an almost uncomfortable reverence, like they'd brushed up against something they still couldn't explain years later. No one had anything bad to say. Not really, but no one could define you either. The investigator noticed the pattern in the confusion. Everyone felt close to you, yet when asked who you truly were beneath the surface, they went silent. Their eyes drifted, and eventually, Each one said some version of the same sentence. I thought I knew them, but I'm not sure I ever did. One former colleague said something that made the investigator stop writing altogether. That person is like a mirror. When I was around them, I only saw myself, my hopes, my fears, my potential, but I never saw what was inside them. It was like they stood on the other side of the glass, watching me examine myself without ever revealing who they were. The investigator wrote that down 3 times, underlined it, circled it because for the first time it felt like a real clue. The behavioral analysis section of the report filled with contradictions. Present yet absent, warm yet unreachable, honest yet unknowable, kind yet quietly intimidating. No psychological profile would hold. Categories collapsed under scrutiny. Most people fit somewhere: avoidant or attached, aggressive or passive, manipulative or sincere. You fit nowhere. Margin notes grew sharper, more frustrated. Subject does not conform to established behavioral model. High emotional regulation observed. Motivations unclear. Profile inconclusive. That word echoed throughout the file like an admission of defeat. Inconclusive, not from incompetence, but from confronting something beyond training. Textbooks were pulled from shelves. Old case studies reread. Precedents searched for. Frameworks tested. Nothing aligned. Nothing explained you, and that's when the case shifted. Frustrated, unsettled, the investigator expanded the search. They contacted employers, institutions, agencies, anyone who might have investigated you before, and what they uncovered shattered the final illusion. This wasn't the first time someone had tried to dismantle you. Over the years, multiple parties had hired professionals to dig into your life. Multiple investigations, multiple confident beginnings, and the same ending every time. Nothing. Some investigators refunded their clients and walked away. Others submitted partial reports filled with the same contradictions. A few left warnings in their final notes: cryptic, unsettling, dismissed at the time. One former investigator refused to speak at all, saying only 3 words before hanging up. Some people are different. Another laughed nervously and admitted they'd left the profession not long after, unable to explain why, only saying that certain subjects make the work lose its meaning. The current investigator sat with this realization in silence. Multiple professionals, multiple failures, all of them changed by the encounter. And slowly, an impossible question took shape. What kind of person leaves no trace yet alters everyone who tries to define them? The answer, when it finally surfaced, would dismantle everything they believed about power, control, and how this world truly works. Then came the digital footprint analysis, the stage where most investigations end quickly because in this era, everyone leaves trail. Every search, every purchase, every location ping, every late-night scroll becomes part of an invisible confession. The digital exhaust of modern life usually reveals more truth than a person ever intends to share. Most targets hand over their secrets without realizing it, but when the investigator pulled your digital records, something felt wrong immediately. You were there, but barely accounts existed, yet revealed nothing. Posts appeared open but concealed more than they showed. Every interaction was deliberate, every word measured. No emotional leakage, no desperation, no impulsive behavior, just signal, pure signal, no noise. Location tracking made even less sense. Cities that didn't connect, gaps that defied explanation, movement patterns that looked chaotic until the investigator realized the chaos itself was intentional. Disorder with purpose, unpredictability as design. You moved through the modern surveillance machine like water through open hands, present everywhere, captured nowhere. The notes grew shorter, sharper, more tense. Subject demonstrates advanced operational security unusual for civilian profile awareness of tracking methods evident. Digital footprint minimal and deliberately curated. They stared at those words, unsettled by a question they didn't want to ask. What kind of person develops this level of awareness without training? That thought should have been a warning. Instead, it became an invitation. Standard methods had failed. Remote analysis was useless, so the investigator went dark. Physical surveillance boots on the ground, watching, waiting, following you through ordinary routines, searching for the unguarded moment when the truth would slip out. At first, everything looked normal. Morning coffee, workdays, evening errands, nothing remarkable, nothing worth billing for. Then on the 4th day, something shifted. Your patterns changed, not abruptly, but subtly. Routes adjusted. Pauses appeared in strange places. Stops with no obvious purpose, and slowly, like cold water creeping up the spine, the realization formed. The surveillance was no longer one-directional. Without confrontation, without acknowledgement, without a single outward sign you knew, and now you were watching back. This was the moment the power dynamic fractured. The hunter began to feel hunted, and no words were exchanged. The game unfolded in silence through timing, distance, redirection. The investigator investigator felt something they hadn't felt in years. Uncertainty. Not doubt, not confusion, real uncertainty. The kind that makes you wonder if continuing is a mistake. They were trained for this, trained to blend in, to disappear, to follow without being felt, but none of it worked because you never looked at them, never exposed them, never reacted, yet you moved with an awareness that erased their advantage. Every position they chose became wrong. Every pause you took forced them to adjust a stop at a crosswalk just long enough to close distance. Then movement again, a sudden detour into a building with multiple exits. Hours spent in places that left them exposed and waiting. Slowly, unmistakably, they realized they were being played. Their notes from this phase read like someone watching their certainty dissolve. Subject exhibits complete situational awareness. Covert observation ineffective. Subject anticipates and counters without hostility. Continuing operation may be inadvisable, but they kept going out of pride, out of curiosity, out of a need to understand something that defied explanation. And then it became clear. You weren't just aware of the surveillance, you were controlling it. Their movements became reactive, predictable. When you stopped, they stopped. When you turned, they adjusted. When you stayed in one place for hours, they waited. You set the rhythm. You chose the tempo. The investigator followed choreography they never agreed to perform. In intelligence circles, there's a term for this: operational dominance. The ability to control an environment so completely that anyone inside it is forced to respond to your choices. It's rare. It demands awareness, patience, and psychological mastery most people never develop, and you were doing it effortlessly, like breathing. The investigator tried to preserve their self-image, searching for excuses, questioning their own edge, but deep down, in the place truth lives before denial arrives, they knew. They hadn't lost anything. They'd simply encountered someone sharper. Then came the moment that broke everything. The investigator had been parked outside your building for hours, watching, waiting, determined to finally extract something tangible, something real, something that would justify the obsession, something that would explain you. That would finally explain who you were beneath all the mystery. And then it happened. You appeared, but instead of walking to your car, instead of heading into another predictable routine the investigator had logged 100 times before, you turned and walked straight toward their vehicle. Not rushed, not aggressive, calm, deliberate, certain. You stopped about 5 feet from the hood and looked directly through the windshield. That look people struggle to describe. Not anger, not threat, not curiosity. Just complete awareness, total present, the kind of gaze that quiets a room without effort. Then you smiled, not cruelly, not mockingly, just a soft, knowing smile, like someone acknowledging a game that had been over long before anyone else realized it had begun. And without a word, you turned and walked away. That was it. No confrontation, no explanation, no drama. The investigator sat frozen in the car for 20 minutes afterward, hands shaking, heart pounding, unable to process what had just occurred. Someone they had followed for weeks had just acknowledged the surveillance with perfect precision and absolute control and left without needing to say a single word. The power dynamic was undeniable. They were no longer observing you. You had been allowing yourself to be seen, and you had just demonstrated that the permission could be revoked at any moment. The notes from that night were different, sparse, careful. Subject made direct contact, non-threatening, impossible to interpret, demonstrated complete awareness of surveillance with no concern. Recommend termination of investigation, but they didn't stop. They couldn't. It was personal now, an unanswered question gnawing at them. So they crossed lines they had sworn never to cross, pulled records they weren't authorized to see, accessed databases that required clearances they didn't have, reached out to contacts who operated beyond official channels, and that's when they found it. The anomalies, sealed file, classified references that mentioned your name only in fragments, codes, warnings, phrases stripped of explanation. Do not engage. Do not pursue. Subject under observation. The most disturbing part wasn't the warnings themselves. It was where they came from. Government systems, corporate intelligence archives, private security networks that weren't supposed to intersect. Everywhere your name appeared, the message was the same. Leave this one alone. The investigator sat with that realization for days, trying to assemble meaning from pieces that refuse to form a picture. Who leaves traces in classified systems? Who generates caution flags across institutions that don't acknowledge each other's existence? The answer that began to form was so unsettling they almost rejected it. Then, 3 days later, the phone rang, blocked number. No ID. Just a calm, emotionless voice on the other end. Close the file. Walk away. This isn't someone you want to understand. Some people exist outside the categories we use to explain the world. This isn't a threat, it's advice. Take it. The line went dead. The investigator stared at the phone, realization settling in like weight. Someone had been watching them while they watched you. Someone knew exactly what they'd uncovered and exactly what they were about to uncover next, and that someone had chosen to intervene. Maybe not to protect you, maybe to protect them, or maybe to protect the world from what happens when too many questions are asked about people like you. The message was unmistakable. Some mysteries are not meant to be solved. The investigator thought about all the others who had walked away from your case, wondered how many had received similar calls, similar warnings, how many had been redirected just before crossing a line that couldn't be uncrossed. The scale of it all was becoming clear. This was never just a background check. The final report was never completed. Every attempt felt inadequate. How do you document someone who defies every framework? How do you profile someone who exists beyond leverage, beyond manipulation, beyond control? The investigator typed one final note at the bottom of the unfinished file. Subject exists beyond standard classification. Clean record, clean reputation, clean conscience, and that purity is the anomaly. In a world built on pressure points, this individual has none. No attachments to threaten, no addictions to exploit, no fears to manipulate, no dependencies to use. Recommend no further action. The investigation is terminated. The file now sits in a drawer somewhere, unfinished, unresolved, quietly unsettling anyone who opens it. It offers no neat conclusion, no satisfying ending, only questions that linger long after the pages are closed. The clients who commissioned it never received what they paid for. They wanted weapon. They were given warnings. They asked for ammunition. They were handed something far more disturbing: admiration disguised as frustration. They set out to destroy someone and instead discovered a truth they were never prepared to face. Some people simply cannot be destroyed. The resolution they expected never arrived. The victory they imagined never materialized. All that remained was unease and an emptying bank account. Here's what most people don't understand about investigations like this, about those who make a living exposing secret. The ones who are truly skilled, who've done this for years, who've seen every version of human weakness, they develop a kind of sixth sense. They know quickly when someone is hiding something, when a clean image is artificial, when skeletons are waiting to be uncovered, and when they encounter someone who is genuinely clean, clear in conscience, precise in boundaries, operating on a frequency untouched by manipulation. It doesn't just confuse them, changes them. That investigator who spent weeks studying your life didn't walk away unchanged. Something fundamental shifted. They began noticing patterns everywhere, seeing the invisible games people play without realizing it, understanding that your distance, your silence, your refusal to engage in chaos wasn't coldness at all. It was wisdom. It was the sanest response to an insane world. They started applying what they learned from watching you, cutting off relationships that drained their energy, walking away from environments that compromised their peace, moving through life with sharper awareness and fewer words. People noticed, friends noticed, colleagues noticed. Something had happened, something that couldn't be explained easily. The investigator became quieter, more observant, less willing to participate in what everyone else insists on calling normal life after closing your case. They began keeping a private journal, not professional notes, but personal reflection. Pages filled with confusion, awe, and searching. I went looking for weakness and found a strength I didn't know existed. That was one entry. Another read. I was trained to believe everyone has a price, a breaking point, something that can be leveraged. Now I know that isn't true. Some people have stepped outside the economy everyone else lives in. Some people have exited the game entirely while appearing to play along. Over time, the questions grew deeper. How does someone become like that? Were they born this way, or did they choose it? Is it discipline, destiny, or something divine? And the question they never stopped circling: could I become that too? The journal filled over months, not with answers, but with acceptance. Eventually, the entries slowed. The need to analyze faded. Some things aren't meant to be understood. Some people aren't meant to be categorized, and the wisest response isn't investigation, it's respect. Quiet, humble, slightly fearful respect. This isn't the part where we feel sorry for your enemy. They don't deserve sympathy. They deserve exactly what they're experiencing now: frustration, confusion, the slow panic of realizing their tools no longer work. They live in an economy of dirt, leverage, exposure. That's how they've always controlled outcomes, and now they've encountered someone who doesn't participate in that system. Someone without exploitable vulnerabilities. Someone who cannot be pressured, threatened, or manipulated into compliance. That realization terrifies them more than any scandal ever could, because when someone exists beyond control, the entire structure of power built on fear begins to crack. Every tactic they've relied on assumes everyone has something to hide, but what do you do with someone who hides nothing because there is nothing to hide? You unravel. You question your methods. You begin to suspect that the game you've been playing isn't mandatory after all, and that suspicion is the beginning of their collapse. They held a meeting after receiving the incomplete report, expecting names, scandals, leverage points. Instead, they got silent. Confusion, an investigator who couldn't meet their eyes while explaining why the case was closed. One demanded a refund, another insisted on hiring someone else, someone better. The investigator shook their head and said something that emptied the room of noise. I've been doing this for 18 years. I've investigated politicians, executives, celebrities, criminal. Everyone has something. Everyone except this one, and if you send someone else, they'll find the same thing. Nothing. Or they'll find what I found beyond the nothing. The sealed file, the warnings, the systems that quietly, unmistakably say the same thing. Leave this one alone, and whoever uncovers that truth will face a choice: walk away, like I'm walking away now, or push further and stumble into something none of us are prepared to understand. The enemies looked at one another, some furious, some confused, some quietly afraid. The investigator stood, steady now, resolved. Keep your money. I don't want payment for this. Forget you ever asked me to look into this person, and if you're wise, forget they exist at all. Then they walked out, leaving the room heavy with silence. Whatever certainty had fueled this mission dissolved in that moment, replaced by something unfamiliar and deeply unsettling. Doubt. Real doubt about whether they ever understood what they were dealing with in the first place. The divine chooses its own, and the protection surrounding you is no accident. It wasn't earned through manipulation or strategy. It came from alignment, from walking a path most are too afraid to choose, from decisions that looked strange at the time but forged a life capable of withstanding any scrutiny, any investigation, any attempt at exposure. While others cut corners, you built foundation. While others gathered secrets, you practiced transparency. While others collected leverage, you became unleverable. This was never a tactic. It was instinct. Something in you always knew that freedom demanded a different way of living, that real power came from having nothing that could be taken from you. Sovereignty wasn't about holding weapons over others, it was about removing every weapon that could be used against you, and now that investment is paying dividends you couldn't have imagined. The years of being called strange, the seasons of isolation, the moments when compromise tempted you and you refused. None of it was wasted. It was preparation. It was all leading here to the moment someone went searching for weakness and found an unshakable foundation instead. Look around now. Enemies are retreating in confusion. Investigations meant to expose you have exposed nothing. Resources poured into your downfall were spent confirming what you already knew, that the surface matches the depth, that the image reflects the truth. Some chosen ones endure long struggle because the universe is refining them. Every relationship that fell away wasn't loss, it was clearing. Every opportunity that vanished wasn't misfortune, it was redirection. Every season of isolation wasn't punishment, it was protection. Ensuring nothing could attach to you that might later be used against you. Ensuring no compromising ties could form. Ensuring your record stayed clean because one day someone would check it, and now that day has come. The check is complete. The verdict is in. You passed a test you never knew you were taking, and passed it so thoroughly that the examiners became the ones examined. They stared into the mirror you unknowingly built and saw their own fear reflected back. Their own smallness. Their own dependence on leverage in a world where you've proven leverage isn't required. Remember what surfaced in those interviews from your past, that everyone saw something different when they looked at you, that you functioned like a mirror. This was never deception. It was discernment. You learned early that wisdom means knowing what to reveal and what to protect, that authenticity doesn't require full access to everyone. You gave people what they were capable of receiving, nothing more, nothing less. Some felt warmth because they needed warmth. Some felt strength because they needed strength. Some sensed mystery because they weren't ready for clarity. None of it was false, all of it was you, just the version they could handle, and that selective revelation has made you impossible to reduce, impossible to define, impossible to attack with a single narrative. You aren't one story, you're a library, and most people only ever read a single page. The investigator tried to read the entire volume, to assemble meaning from fragments and surveillance and testimony, and all they ended up with was a reading list too vast to finish in a lifetime. By the time they grasped the scope, the investigation was already over and they were already changed, because this didn't end with them. It rippled outward. Quiet conversations began among professionals. Careful warnings shared without detail. Stories exchanged about cases that went nowhere, subjects who didn't fit patterns, investigations that collapsed under the weight of something unexplainable. A pattern emerged. Not just you, but people like you. Chosen ones who move through the world without generating the vulnerabilities everyone else accepts as normal. There's no official classification for it, but seasoned professionals recognize it instantly. The untouchables. Not because of power, money, or influence, but because of a way of being that removes every handle others use to control, and the mere existence of that category is reshaping how certain people think about power itself. Some are disturbed by it. Others are quietly awakened. A few have already begun studying you in silence, trying to decode how one becomes untouchable, because your existence alone, your quiet proof of what's possible, is reshaping the terrain for everyone who comes after you. What's unfolding now goes far beyond revenge, beyond the hollow satisfaction of watching enemies fail. Something far more profound is rising, a revelation of how you've been moving all along. That instinct for privacy they called paranoia was wisdom. The distance that unsettled people was protection. Your refusal to engage in chaos wasn't avoidance, it was strategy. Every trait the world criticized was actually training you for this exact moment, a moment where someone would hunt for weakness and find none, where leverage would be sought and only emptiness returned, where the old playbook of destruction would collapse against someone unknowingly forging themselves into something indestructible. This awareness flooding you now isn't new, it's simply becoming conscious. Deep down, you always knew you were different, that the rules everyone else followed were never meant for you, that your path demanded a rarer discipline, a sharper integrity, a quieter power. Now you see why. Now you understand why those choices that confused others were precisely right for you. The vindication was never external, it was internal, a truth finally surfacing. This is who I am, who I've always been, who I was destined to become. But let me interrupt this transmission for a moment. Are you truly chosen? Prove it. Anyone can watch videos about chosen ones. Few have the courage to test themselves. If you're still here, it means something, but words are cheap and real chosen ones act. That's why Destiny Engine exists. A system designed to transmute betrayal into transcendence, isolation into sacred power, and their downfall into your ascent, using the Dark Elite's own declassified consciousness technologies, once built for scarcity and control, now repurposed for divine justice. You put on the headphones, press play, and witness your enemies suffocate on the lies they forged. If you're done consuming and ready to step forward, start your Destiny Engine for $1 today and enter the Obsidian Inner Order live checks, where divine justice accelerates in real-time. Link in the description. Because those sealed files the investigator uncovered, the warnings from sources that shouldn't have known your name, the mysterious call that abruptly ended everything, all of it points to the same truth. Someone is watching, not with malice, but with understanding. That individual, like you, require different treatment, that drawing too much attention to certain people creates more problems than it solves, that some mysteries are protected for reasons investigators could never grasp. Divine orchestration rarely arrives with fire and spectacle. It moves through quiet redirections, systems that suddenly stop working the way they're supposed to when they encounter you, phone calls that shouldn't happen yet do, influence appearing at the precise moment needed to render certain outcomes impossible, no matter how much money is thrown at them. The protection around you has layers, some visible, some unseen, some born from your integrity, others from sources you'll never meet, all merging into something that looks like invulnerability, like immunity, like a person who simply cannot be touched. And the harder they try, the clearer it becomes that trying is futile. The most powerful truth of all is this: you didn't have to do anything. No lawyers, no counterattacks, no reputation management, no scrambling to hide evidence or manufacture alibi. You simply lived. You kept walking your path, making aligned choices, and your existence itself became your defense. The investigator found nothing because there was nothing to find, not because it was hidden, but because it never existed. This is what it means to live clean in a dirty world. Not perfection, not sainthood, just integrity, alignment, and the courage to live in a way you'd never fear being fully seen. Most people fail because they don't understand the cost, how every compromise compounds, how every secret becomes future leverage. But something in you understood that freedom required a clean record, and you built one. Now that record stands as your fortress, a shield that doesn't attack yet cannot be breached. Your enemies are regrouping, searching for their next move, not realizing there isn't one. The investigation was their final play. The money was supposed to guarantee results, and now it's gone. Worse still, they're no longer fighting what they thought they were, because before they could tell themselves you were just lucky, just uncaught, just a facade waiting to fall, and now they know better. Now they've seen it with their own eyes, the proof of your integrity, verified by paid professionals whose job was to find cracks and came back empty-handed. They received confirmation that you are exactly what you appear to be, and that confirmation shattered something inside them. Their confidence, their certainty, Their quiet belief that if they waited long enough, they'd eventually discover a way to bring you down. Some of them will keep trying. Pride won't allow surrender, but every attempt will grow more desperate, more obvious, more self-destructive, because desperation never removes vulnerability. It multiplies it, and you'll watch it happen in real time. You'll watch them slip, watch them expose themselves, watch the ones who tried to compromise you become the compromised, the predators slowly transforming into prey through obsession alone, the hunters trapped by the very persistence they mistook for power. It has already begun. You may not see every thread yet, but the unraveling is underway, and it won't stop until they either walk away defeated or destroy themselves chasing something they can't touch. Think about the investigator one more time, the professional who entered your life with a mission and left carrying questions they'll never fully put down. Somewhere out there, they're still thinking about you, still replaying the weeks they spent circling a mystery that refused to behave like anything they'd ever known. Without ever speaking to them, you taught them something. Your life became the lesson. Your choices became the curriculum. Your existence demonstrated what happens when someone refuses to participate in the quiet compromises everyone else treats as unavoidable. They won't forget you not because of drama or confrontation, but because you showed them something they didn't believe existed. A person moving through the surveillance age without generating dirt, maintaining relationships without manufacturing enemies, achieving success without collecting skeletons along the way. Until they didn't know it was possible, and now they do, which means they have to rebuild their understanding of human nature around a truth that destabilizes everything. Some people are genuinely clean, some people operate from real integrity, and a rare few have solved a problem most humanity never realizes exists: how to be truly free. Weeks after closing your case, that investigator sat across from a colleague over drinks. The colleague noticed the change: less aggressive, less certain, less ruthless, and asked why. After a long pause, the investigator finally spoke, admitting they'd built an entire career on the belief that everyone was hiding something, that everyone had dirt if you looked hard enough. Then they met someone who broke the premise, not because they hid better, but because they lived without accumulating what everyone else accumulates, just by existing a life without buried weapons, a record without leverage, a freedom the investigator didn't even know was achievable. And now, they couldn't stop wondering if they'd been asking the wrong question all along. Maybe the question isn't how to uncover what people hide, but how some people learn to have nothing to hide in the first place. The colleague had no response. Silence filled the space. The investigator finished their drink and left, still changed, still carrying questions, still moving through a world that no longer looked the same after encountering you. And now we return to the beginning, to that windowless room, to the file with your name on it, except the atmosphere has shifted. The confidence is gone. The certainty has evaporated. The anticipation of destruction has been replaced with something that feels a lot like fear, because there is no next move. Every standard tactic failed. Every familiar weapon proved useless. Every assumption collapsed under the impossible truth that some people cannot be touched. That file will be closed, sealed, and archived among the unsolvable cases, and everyone who handles it will carry the same quiet questions. Who is this person? How did they manage this? What are they connected to? They'll never find answers, because the answers require understanding something beyond their reach, that different rules apply to different people, that some individuals operate on frequencies the system can't detect or counter, that chosen means exactly what it sounds like: selected, protected, guided not by luck or privilege, but by alignment with something far greater than any investigator or enemy could ever comprehend. This story began with someone opening a file with your name on it. It ends with someone closing that same file, shaking their head, and walking away forever altered by what they couldn't find. Now you know what really happened during those weeks, when someone searched your life for destruction and uncovered something else entirely: a presence that defies categories, a force that leaves professionals unsettled, a person who cannot be understood through conventional means. They found you, and discovering you changed them, just as discovering yourself changed you, just as this message reaching you at this exact moment is part of a larger pattern you're only beginning to recognize. The investigation is over. The file is closed. The enemies are confused, and you're exactly where you've always been meant to be, standing in the quiet center of your own life, untouched by the chaos that tried to reach you, unmoved by the forces that assumed you would bend like everyone else. Nothing about this moment is accidental. Every step, every delay, every strange detour led you here. You didn't arrive by force or by chance, but by alignment. While others chased power, you embodied it. While others reacted, you remained anchored, and now the world is adjusting around you, recalibrating itself to a reality it can no longer deny. You are not ahead. You are not behind. You are precisely on time, exactly where you've always been, protected, guided, and steadily walking a path that cannot be intercepted.